Homnuntu, a master of the horror genre, invites you into the chilling and haunting world of her novel, The Red Cloth. This story opens the door to dark mysteries where every page feels like a deeper step into a terrifying labyrinth, vengeful spirits and unbreakable curses. The story revolves around a mysterious red cloth, stunningly beautiful but cursed with deadly consequences. When a group of friends, Duntithi, Tunkung, Lamki, and Lukangki, accidentally come into possession of the cloth, their lives are quickly turned upside down. Cloth is not merely a fashion item, but the key to a series of horrific events, where a dark past filled with brutal tragedies suddenly returns to haunt the present. Each character is faced with personal nightmares, where the line between reality and illusion becomes increasingly blurred. Mysterious deaths, invisible ghosts, and agonizing screams unfold chapter by chapter, forcing them into life-or-death decisions. They soon realize that the cloth is not only the source of their misfortunes, but also a gateway to even more dreadful secrets that no one dares to imagine. With a sharp pen and an enthralling writing style, Homnuntu masterfully weaves together reality and dreams, blending dazzling beauty with unspeakable horrors. The Red Cloth is not just a tale of restless spirits, but also a stark reminder of greed and the merciless punishment that fate can deliver. Enter the world of the Red Cloth, where darkness and light endlessly battle, where each character must pay the price for the secrets they hide, and you won't be able to look away until the very last page. Don't hesitate any longer and join me in listening to the first part of this masterpiece of a horror novel. Are you ready? Let's go. "My dear, let's take a break on that rock and have some water," said the middle-aged woman. Her voice was warm and soothing. She was dressed in black and wore a white headscarf. She looked at her daughter, who was gently placing down a bundle of herbs. With loving eyes and carefully picked a leaf out of her hair. Taking out a wooden comb, she said to her daughter, "We've only been gathering herbs for half a day, and your hair is already a mess. Sit down so I can comb it for you." The little girl obediently sat down. The mother combed her daughter's black hair with the dark wooden comb. The girl's smooth black hair fluttered in the wind. The mother fell silent. The daughter focused on watching an ant crawl over a leaf near her. Everything was peaceful. This mountain path was discovered by the two of them during their herb gathering trips, and usually few people passed through here. The surrounding forest was quiet, occasionally echoing with the chirping of birds. Behind them stood a large locust tree, its roots intertwined and sprawling across a wide patch of ground. As the little girl was chattering about their herb gathering, she suddenly felt a cold breeze behind her. Just as she was about to turn around to see what was happening, she felt a sharp blow to her head, and she fell unconscious. Cold wind blew, waking her up. By now, it was almost dusk. She wriggled and found herself tightly bound with branches under the locust tree. Carefully observing her surroundings, she called out in fear, "Mother, where are you?" Nearby, she heard the sound of a knife being sharpened. She wanted to turn her head to see, but the pain in her head was too intense. Only then did she realize that not only was she tied to the tree, but her hair was also divided into two parts and tied to the locust tree, which explained why she couldn't move her head. In utter terror, she screamed, "Mother, where are you? Please come and save me." She then heard her mother's familiar voice, "Don't shout, my dear. The pain will be over soon." Hearing her mother's voice, she forgot her fear and cried out even louder, "Mother, please untie me, it hurts so much." The sound of the sharpening continued, steady and persistent. The voice of her mother echoed through the forest, firm and commanding, "Be patient just a little longer. I'm almost done." "Mother, what are you doing? Why did you tie me up?" The girl cried out weakly. At that moment, through her tear-filled eyes, she saw her mother. In her mother's hand was a shiny, sharp herb-digging spade. Her mother smiled coldly, caressing the sharp spade. "I've been sharpening it for a long time. I wanted to hurry because I know a sharp knife can kill quickly and painlessly." The little girl looked at her mother in disbelief. "Mother, do you want to kill me?" My dear, you should never have been born. You were blinded and reincarnated in the wrong place. Now that things have come to this, there's no point in talking anymore. Just go peacefully." The woman raised the sharp spade and gouged out the eyes of her unfortunate daughter. As she finished, she screamed, "You were blind, so don't blame me, don't blame me." The moon hid behind the clouds as if it didn't want to witness this horrific scene. The girl's desperate, heart-wrenching cries for help scared the birds away, and the forest was filled with a strange smell of blood. The girl, now with a face drenched in blood, was barely breathing. Her eyes had become two bloody holes with fresh blood streaming out continuously. The woman carefully wrapped the eyes in her headscarf, gently placed them in her lap, slowly gathered her belongings, and walked down the mountain. Behind her, the faint voice of the girl echoed, "I will seek revenge, I will seek revenge, revenge." On a beautiful day, Tuncum was comfortably enjoying the sweet aroma of a pleasant dream on her single bed in a residential area. Suddenly, the phone rang. She grabbed her mobile, still with her eyes closed, and cursed, "Who is this? It's past midnight. Can't you let people live?" A sharp female voice came from the other end. "Past midnight? The sun has already risen, my dear friend. Wake up. Come over to my place, I'm back." Tuncum was now fully awake. It turned out to be her close friend, Dung Thi. She scolded back, "You annoying pest. When you're away, the world is peaceful. The moment you return, it's like a plague descends upon us. So you're back, but does that mean I have to go and greet you?" The call ended abruptly. Tuncum sat in a daze, thinking about how tough it was to deal with Dung Thi, a forceful person who was not easy to mess with. A black cat jumped onto the bed, staring at her intently, demanding breakfast. She stroked the cat gently and said softly, Hukbao, today we have to go meet the shrew Thi." Hukbao was Tuncum's little treasure. It was a stray cat she had picked up beside a garbage bin on a cold winter night. Now it lived a luxurious life, with gourmet food, cozy bed, premium toys. After bathing and dressing, the mirror reflected a beautiful woman with a tall figure, well-fitted clothes, and an elegant demeanor. Tuncum sighed in regret. Someone with such perfect qualities, yet she still hadn't found a boyfriend. Was it because her standards were too high, or were there no decent men left in this world? Dung Thi was a wealthy heiress with enough fortune to live extravagantly, spoil men, travel the world, and never work. Just recently, she had gone on an extended trip. Whenever she felt bored, she would drive aimlessly, stopping wherever she pleased. Every time she returned, she would bring back a heap of gifts, indulging in all the finest things the world had to offer. Tuncum had to walk through a beautiful garden to reach Thi's spacious living room. By then, 3 people were already seated inside. Tuncum took Hukbao out of the basket and handed it to Dung Thi, who immediately began fussing over the little darling. Lam Ti stood up and handed a glass of water to Tuncum. Lam Ti had a unique, trendy style. Just by looking at her attire and makeup, could tell what was currently in vogue. Lukang Ti, playing with a silver trinket in the corner, smiled brightly at Tuncum. Though she was Thi's cousin, Lukang Ti exuded an air of refinement, always gentle, elegant, and ladylike. Whenever Dung Thi returned, everyone would gather together. While Tuncum nibbled on strawberries in the spacious dining room, Thi enthusiastically shared stories of her recent adventures, captivating everyone with her vivid and engaging storytelling. This time, I went to Tung Tai. Aside from the challenging roads, everything there was wonderful. It's a place of incredible beauty and tranquility. At night, when the wind blows, it feels like you can reach out and touch the stars. At dusk, you can see the smoke rising from the chimneys of the houses in the village. Next time, you all must come with me. It's truly a paradise. After a while, everyone demanded gifts. PT loved this moment the most. She proudly displayed everything she had bought. The 3 of them gathered around the sofa, watching as Thi excitedly unwrapped a large box, carefully removing the ribbon. Everyone eagerly followed her every move, watching intently as she solemnly opened the box. Inside was just a paper package, which she continued to unwrap layer by layer. Finally, she used a knife to cut the last layer, revealing a burst of vibrant red fabric that lit up the entire room. Even Lam Ki, who was accustomed to grand events, widened her eyes in awe. Tun Kum, regaining her composure, realized it was a piece of red cloth. Though red fabric wasn't uncommon, the color was extraordinarily beautiful. 4 of them stood there, mesmerized by the cloth. The silence was broken when Hukbao suddenly jumped off Tun Kum's lap, startling everyone as it leaped out of the window. Tun Kum was the quickest to react. She dashed to the window but only caught a glimpse of Hukbao at the end of the street, fur standing on end. She called out, "Hukbao, stop! I'm coming to get you." By the time she reached the road, Hukbao had vanished. Tun Kum nearly cried but managed to hold back her tears. The red cloth lay unfolded on the sofa, its warm color resembling the light of stars, impossible to ignore. Look, Enki exclaimed, "I can't believe such a beautiful color exists." "Tithi, where did you find this treasure?" Dun Tithi proudly replied, "I saw it in a small town. There was only this one piece, hanging in someone's house. It was so beautiful, I had to have it." They all sat down, gently stroking the fabric as if it were a cherished child. It was cool and incredibly smooth to the touch. "Is it silk? It's so smooth, I wonder how they wove it so tightly. Feels amazing to touch. Once you touch it, you don't want to let go. So comfortable." Dun Thithi hadn't expected the fabric to receive such high praise from her friends. While the 3, who rarely agreed on anything, were engrossed in discussing it, she coldly declared, "I plan to use this fabric to make a stylish cheongsam. If there's any left over, you guys can split it. This piece is large, so there should be plenty." And so, the red fabric became a part of their lives, like a gentle cut from a sharp knife. Nowadays, women rarely visit tailors, as the clothes in shops are more than enough for them to choose from. There are certain outfits that can make their owners look stunning. Everyone needs at least one such wardrobe essential. It can highlight the owner's beauty, much like a platinum border accentuates the brilliance of a diamond. Every woman needs an outfit like that. Dun Thithi had the design sketches from a renowned city fashion designer. Yet she and her friends, Tun Kum and Lam Ki, had to drive to a small town to find a tailor. Feeling annoyed, she complained while driving, "Why do we have to go all the way to this small town to find a tailor? Such a hassle. Why do talented people always hide in remote places? It's really frustrating." When people succeed, they become a bit eccentric, not socializing much, which is why they can't prosper in business, Lam Ki replied with an air of experience. And Kum, lost in thoughts of her cat, remained silent. Hukbao was her little treasure. No matter how beautiful the scenery outside, it couldn't capture her attention. She wondered, could Hukbao just be another passerby in her life? The town was quiet. Perhaps everyone was taking a nap. Only a few children were playing in a deep alley, their footsteps echoing softly on the stone road. In this small town, just a few turns led them to a small tailor shop. Inside, colorful fabrics hung everywhere, and scraps of cloth littered the place. A large pair of scissors rested on an old sewing machine. Is this where the master tailor is hiding? Thithi could hardly believe her eyes. As they opened the door and looked inside, they saw a middle-aged man, slightly bald, dark skin, looking very honest and plainly dressed. Was this the talented tailor they had traveled such a long way to find? He stammered as they explained why they were there, and handed him the design. The man only glanced at it briefly. "My name is Ho. Before I start tailoring, let me see the fabric first," the man sternly requested. Lam Ki proudly opened the box and carefully unwrapped the paper, noticing that the edges of the fabric seemed to move slightly, as if alive, wanting to unfold itself. Finally, the fabric was spread out. Mr. Ho seemed spellbound, standing still for a long time. Lam Ki was even more pleased, realizing that this unique fabric had also captivated a man who was no stranger to various textiles. 4 friends exchanged delighted glances, their hearts swelling with joy. Mr. Ho took the fabric outside to examine it in the light. It glowed like the jeweled navel of a belly dancer during an enchanting dance, casting a magical allure over the men. He held the fabric, lost in thought, as if forming a design idea. Perhaps he had forgotten their presence entirely. "Look," Enki whispered. "It looks like he loves this red fabric." "Nonsense," the other three answered in unison. "Look," Enki, feeling embarrassed, curiously wandered into the darker part of the house. Passing through a dark doorway, she noticed various items scattered on the floor. On both sides of the hallway were wooden rooms, dimly lit as they lacked skylights. Still, she ventured further inside. Seeing the household items of the small-town residents, she found them fascinating, as she had been a pampered, rich girl since childhood and had never had the chance to visit such places. Even the dressing table here was different. So, when she saw the dressing table in the small room at the far end, she immediately approached it. The room was sparsely furnished, with just an old bed and a mirror covered in a layer of dust, indicating it had not been visited for a long time. Noticing a small chair in front of the mirror, she sat down to admire this old dressing table for a while. It was made of ironwood, beautifully carved, large and sturdy, with a round mirror. There was a comb placed on it. Seeing that her hair was a bit messy, she picked up the comb to brush her hair. Her hair was beautiful, both black and shiny, falling just to her shoulders. Since childhood, she had always admired how her alluring face looked in the mirror, making her smile. The smile had barely faded from her lips when she noticed a figure flash by in the mirror. Although it was just a fleeting glimpse, she could tell it was an old woman, hunched over, dressed in black, the white headscarf, her head bowed low, making her face hard to see, walking from the door into the room. Terrified, she clutched the comb, but when she turned around, there was no one there. She chased after it, but was met with a cold gust of wind. There was no sign of anyone. Her fear and confusion grew as she turned to flee, but as she neared the door, a wrinkled hand reached out from the wooden door, causing her to freeze. She couldn't believe her eyes. Standing before her was the same old woman she had glimpsed in the mirror earlier, a low white headscarf making it difficult to see her face. The old woman slowly shuffled towards her. Enki was so scared that her mind went blank, leaving her frozen in place. The old woman extended her wrinkled left hand towards her and spoke in a weak voice. "Return it to me. Give it back to me." She screamed loudly and collapsed to the ground. Mr. Ho, hearing the commotion, put down the fabric and rushed inside to see what was happening. Ankam and the others followed quickly, helping Enki up. Mr. Ho entered first, speaking gently to his mother. "Mother, why are you out here?" The old woman stubbornly extended her hand towards Enki again, saying, "Give it back to me." "What on earth are you talking about? Give it back to you." "I don't have anything," Enki replied tearfully, confused. Ankam noticed that Enki was holding a comb and quickly took it from her, asking, "Where did this come from?" Enki returned the comb to the terrifying old woman and hurriedly withdrew her hand. Dunkithi glared at her. Enki quickly explained, "I saw the mirror on that dressing table was covered in dust, so I thought no one lived in that room anymore. My mother's eyesight isn't good. She can't see anything, so it was just a misunderstanding, Miss Look. There's nothing to worry about. Everyone, please don't crowd the doorway. Let's help Miss Look rest and calm down." Mr. Ho explained. Everyone returned inside, and the old woman slowly followed them. Back in the room, Enki sat on a chair while the old woman remained silent, groping around before slowly moving towards the corner of the room. To comfort his mother, Mr. Ho brought the fabric over to her, saying, "Mother, feel this fabric. It's truly beautiful. I've never seen anything like it." A sharp voice suddenly rang out, "Put it down." Everyone was startled and looked at the old woman in the corner. No one expected her to continue shouting, "Put it down now, put the fabric down." Mr. Ho quickly asked, "Why?" The old woman suddenly lifted her head, revealing a wrinkled face full of hatred and blank white eyes. Her gaze was commanding. "Give it back to them." Four friends were so frightened they huddled together in a corner. The old woman's presence was terrifying. Mr. Ho choked back tears as he said, "Mother, you can't see, so you don't understand how beautiful this fabric is. This material is truly one of a kind, and if it's in my hands, I'll make it into the most exquisite outfit. Please, Mother." Let me accept this fabric. The old woman repeated each word slowly. Put it down, give it back to them. As she spoke, she groped her way towards the inner room. Mr. Ho stammered. My mother has never come out here before, and she's never interfered in my work. I don't know why she's doing this today. It's really strange. Dunpithi offered to pay extra, but Mr. Ho still refused. On the drive back home, no one said a word, feeling like their day had been nothing but bad luck. Tunkum got out of the car in front of her house. Standing on the street, she suddenly thought of Hukbao. She believed it would return home after playing outside, thinking it might be somewhere nearby. She picked up the sky-blue cat basket and started calling meow meow. As she searched through the trash bins along the road, looking like someone who had just suffered a heartbreak. As she was intently searching, a pair of shiny white shoes appeared, swaying back and forth in front of her. She looked up to see who this swaying two-half rhythm man was. The man was gazing at her intently. Tunkum shot him a glance. The man was still staring at her with a deep, almost romantic look. Tunmeo-kan, is that you? Tunkum froze. It was as if she was reliving a childhood nightmare. It had been a long time since anyone had called her by that name. When she was little, she loved cats and spent all day talking to them. From then on, even into adulthood, she was nicknamed Tunmeo-kan. Later, she found the nickname humiliating. Meo-kan, Meo-kan. She didn't want anyone bringing up that old pain. It reminded her of how she was a late bloomer. Thinking about this, she puffed out her chest and asked sharply, Who are you? The two-house rhythm man ran his hand through his hair and replied, Who am I? Take a good look, don't you remember? Tunkum took another look at him. The only thought that crossed her mind was how ridiculous he looked. To be fair, each of his facial features wasn't bad, but when put together, they made for a very odd appearance. His clothes seemed nice, but looked like rags when he wore them. He was tall and broad, but Tunkum thought of him as all brawn and no brains. Why did she have such a bad feeling about him? She didn't dislike many men, but suddenly she remembered. Kalun, is that you? Alun beamed. His smile was irritatingly smug. That's right. I'm the one who used to snatch your school bag, put caterpillars in your pencil case, set your hair on fire with matches, and tell the teacher you were snacking during class. Once during an exam, I farted and blamed it on you. Tunkum wanted to hit him with a cat feather duster. In elementary school, they had sat together, and she had thought that after all this time, he would have forgotten how much he used to torment her, but he remembered every detail. How annoying. Despite everything, he was an old classmate, and he greeted her first, so she forced herself to nod politely. Tunkum suppressed her anger, but then he said something even more infuriating. Tunmeo-kan, are you collecting trash? My goodness, did he have vision problem? The long dress she was wearing, though black and somewhat unusual, was a designer piece. How could he mistake it for a trash collector's uniform? Many people had praised her for looking regal in that dress. Her sandals were also designer, costing 1,800 yuan. Even her quirky cat basket was expensive, yet he mistook it for a trash bin. Clearly, he had no sense of art. And what about the elegant perfume she was wearing? It was pointless to tell him it was a luxury brand. He'd probably confuse it with some cheap fragrance. Did he really mistake her cat search for trash collecting? Oh no! She suddenly realized she hadn't had time to do her makeup before visiting Dunpithi. She must look awful right now. Her curly hairstyle probably didn't appeal to this ignorant guy, which might explain his misunderstanding. No way could she let him think she was some trash collector after all these years of not seeing each other. Standing tall, she told the dim-witted man, I'm looking for my cat. Ran away last night. Looking for your cat? You still like cats that much? Do you remember in 3rd grade when you brought a sick cat to class? It liked to hide in my school bag and you kept calling it softly, which is why I gave you the nickname Tunmeo-kan. Kalun didn't realize he was on the brink of disaster as he continued talking. his pearly white teeth seemingly begging Tun-Kum to knock them out. Tun Mao Khan, that nickname had made her miserable throughout her childhood. Whenever someone heard the name, they'd ask, "Who's that? Why is she called Mao Khan?" And there would always be a nosy person to answer, "That's the flat-chested princess, as flat as a mirror. The nickname Mao Khan fits her perfect." That name had caused her so much suffering, and now this wretched man was the one who had given it to her. In her mind, she debated, should I beat him first and then kill him, or kill him first and then beat him? She couldn't decide. That moment, Kulun spoke again. "Didn't you attend a famous university later on? You're probably the most successful of all our classmates. It's impressive that our rundown elementary school finally produced a talent. But my dear classmate, it seems you look down on us. You've never attended any of our class reunions." Tun-Kum remembered her elementary school days. Initially, she attended a large, beautiful school that looked like a garden, but that year her father had a car accident, and her mother abandoned her to move to England, leaving her to live with her grandmother and attend a dilapidated elementary school. That's why she didn't want to revisit that. It reminded her of the happy times she once had. It seemed that every time she had a nightmare, she saw the large gates of that elementary school. They symbolized her loneliness and helplessness. Just thinking about it made Tun-Kum feel lighter. At least the difficult days were behind her, and now she lived comfortably. "What do you do these days?" she asked casually, but to her surprise, Kulun handed her his business card and proudly said, "I've inherited the family business. I'm a Taoist priest known as Master Thian Dao, specializing in feng shui, exorcism, fortune-telling, and bazi readings." Tun-Kum raised her head and stared at him in disbelief. He beamed and continued, "My ancestors were very famous in this profession. My family is renowned for producing powerful and well-known Taoist priests. You know of Master Kadao?" "I only know a famous person named Kanam, but I don't know of any other well-known person named Ka," she sarcastically replied. "Kanam? I've never heard of him. He must not be very famous. My grandfather Kadao was a renowned Taoist priest in this region. He was an expert in exorcism. When I was a kid, I saw him exorcise ghosts. He looked so cool, just like Andy Lau in the movies." Tun-Kum sighed inwardly. "Oh my, this guy must have never seen a cartoon. He's hopeless." "Have you caught many ghosts lately?" Tun-Kum asked impatiently. "Of course, every ghost I encounter is easily exorcised. If you ever need my services, I'll do it for free. I'm serious. No charge." Tun-Kum had already walked away, but Kulun kept shouting after her, "Remember my business card. Master Thian Dao free services." When Tun-Kum got home, she felt like crying. She had lost Huck Bao. The tailor had refused to make her dress. She'd gone looking for her cat only to meet a crazy guy, and it turned out he was the one who gave her that awful nickname she could never forget. Now, after dressing up, he mistook her for a trash collector. How could she accept that? She ate a listless meal, drank some wine, and after bathing, stood by the window calling meow meow for Huck Bao. Despite being used to living alone for so long, she had grown attached to a cat. She had always thought people only bonded with other people, but in reality, animals could create the same bond. Everything follows the rule of time breeds affection. When she went to bed, she left the door open, hoping Huck Bao would slip in if it returned. That night, Tun-Kum slept under a heavy cloud. She felt that her life had changed too much lately. She didn't know why, but something was unsettling her. She couldn't explain what it was. Late at night, Tun-Kum curled up in a corner of her bed. In her drowsiness, she heard a noise. She quickly opened her eyes to determine where it was coming from. Fear gripped her, wondering if it was a burglar. The room was well lit, allowing her to see everything clearly. There was no one in sight, but the sound was gradually getting closer to her. She began to panic. Earlier today, when she had gone to see Mr. Ho, watching Lu Gangqi being frightened had terrified her as well. The atmosphere in that house had been indescribably eerie. It had sent chills down her spine. She heard the sound coming from under her bed. Her bed was a wooden antique replica, with an empty space underneath, covered by a decorative red curtain. She peered out from behind the curtain to see what was under the bed. She clenched her fists tightly, trying to reassure herself. "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. There's no such thing as ghosts. But she was trembling. When she saw her silk slippers embroidered with flowers, she bent down to look under the bed and saw a dark head slowly moving towards her. No words could describe her terror at that moment. Her mind went blank. The head was getting larger. Tun-Kum bit her lip to keep herself from fainting because, no matter what, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. A head with disheveled hair was slowly creeping towards her on the pristine white floor. She was so frightened that she couldn't scream. Suddenly, the curtain snapped, and before her was a pink blur and the dark head with disheveled hair, still moving. The sound she had heard earlier had been caused by it. As the head moved up to her chin, her fear reached its peak. She tried to scream. The sound got stuck in her throat, and she lost her voice. The most terrifying thing was that the head was slowly rising, and its bright green eyes were staring directly at her. Tun-Kum still hadn't passed out because she couldn't believe what was happening. For someone as educated as she was, it was impossible to accept that what she had believed wasn't real was happening right before her eyes. When the head finally leaped onto her face, she completely broke down. The head jumped onto her face. Soft, wet tongue licked her lips. Its green eyes continued to stare at her. This feeling was oddly familiar. Her heartbeat began to return to normal. A soft meow alerted her to the fact that she hadn't been mistaken. She bravely pulled away the fake hair to reveal her beloved Hukbao. Her cold limbs, which had been frozen moments ago, were now restored, and the blood started circulating normally again. She fully woke up, realizing that being too scared could take years off your life. She picked up the cat and burst into tears. In the bleak night, her sobs seemed to echo endlessly. Normally, she appeared strong and resilient, but that was just a facade. She turned on the light and carefully examined the fake hair. She guessed that when Hukbao had run off and jumped into the trash bin, it must have gotten entangled in the wig. Hukbao was covered in injuries, likely caused by the wig. She thought that, if it had returned any later, it might have died from that wig. Hukbao must have struggled hard to escape and return home so she could save it. Tun-Kum took the cat to the bathroom to wash it. After drying it off, she took out iodine from the medicine cabinet to disinfect its wounds. Hukbao seemed to understand that she was treating it, so it obediently let her continue. Seeing how pitiful it looked, she couldn't bring herself to scold it for scaring her, since it had made such an effort to come home and ask for her help. She was puzzled by how intelligent Hukbao usually was, yet it had gotten tangled up in that wig. The wig could have strangled it. She poured out the entire bag of cat food into Hukbao's bowl. Watching it eat hungrily, she sat contentedly in front of her computer. While she teased it and fed it, the cat seemed completely indifferent, responding only with indifferent meows. Frustrated, she stood up to pour herself a cup of coffee to clear her head. As she turned away, the mirror across from her didn't reflect Tun-Kum's image, but that of a woman with long hair, wearing a green, long-sleeved shirt, standing right behind her. Hukbao, lying in its basket, suddenly let out a sharp meow before jumping onto her. Tun-Kum gently patted it and whispered, "It's past midnight. Don't scare the neighbors with your yowling." But Hukbao didn't seem to care. Its gaze fixated on something behind her. In the mirror, a pale hand with long nails was visible, trembling as it hovered just a few inches from her back. Tun-Kum sat at her computer, holding her cat, and began typing. Hukbao leaped onto the desk, using its body to block the mirror. Now, instead of Tun-Kum's face, the mirror reflected the face of the woman from earlier, her face covered in blood, staring straight ahead. Tun-Kum didn't care much for early mornings in the city because she was a night owl. Dun Pi often joked that Tun-Kum was born under the sign of the owl, active at night and asleep during the day. Her job involved writing articles for a periodical, which didn't bring in much money. Before this, she had been the chief editor at the largest advertising company in the city, earning a very good income. Perhaps one day, while withdrawing money at the bank, she would be surprised to realize that she had enough to retire comfortably. Unless, of course, she planned on keeping a mistress. After quitting her job at the advertising company, she began writing novels. Not because she expected to earn much from it, or because she wanted to bask in the fame of having fans. What was most important to her was the opportunity to take a break. From childhood until now, she had been used to pushing herself forward, like a wound-up clock, always moving ahead. Now, finally, the clock could stop for a bit. The events of the previous night had kept her up late. When she woke up, she saw several missed calls on her phone, which had been on silent mode. She quickly called Duntithi back, only to hear a chorus of excited voices on the other end. After a moment, she recognized the voices of Luk-Anki and Lam-Ki. Duntithi's cheerful voice rang out. "The tailoring is done. Come over and see it." "It's finished already? How could it be done so quickly?" It hadn't even been half a day. Truly, as the saying goes, money can buy anything. The speed at which it was completed showed just how eager the three of them had been. She hurried to get ready. Seeing her beloved cat resting in its basket, she carefully closed the door, not daring to bring Hukbao with her in case it decided to run away again. As soon as she arrived at Dunthithi's house, she rushed inside. It felt as though an invisible force was driving her, compelling her to focus entirely on the outfit. Her heart raced with excitement, similar to the feeling she had on her first date. When she reached the living room, no one was there. The maids in white uniforms signaled her toward the fitting room. She dashed over, forgetting to knock. She burst into the room where a clothing rack stood in the center. Hanging on it was a sparkling red cheongsam, incredibly stylish. Turning around, she saw a trendy red headscarf and a matching red scarf hanging beside it. Duntithi eagerly called out, "Tuncum, have you ever seen an outfit as beautiful as this? Hurry up and put it on so we can see." Luk-Anki urged impatiently. Lam-Ki laughed and added, "Thithi insisted on waiting for you to arrive before changing because she wanted you to be the first to see the cheongsam. Now that you're here, Thithi, hurry up and change. Afterward, we can head to the opening of Jimmy's bar and make everyone envious." Tuncum felt a slight unease because everything was going so smoothly. Almost too smoothly. She picked up the scarf. Since there wasn't enough fabric, she and Luk-Anki had designed the headscarf and scarf from the remaining material. The camisole was Lam-Ki's idea. There hadn't been much fabric left, so this was the best they could do. Everyone was pleased with their respective pieces. When Tuncum held the scarf, she felt an unusual emotion, a strong urge to wrap it around her neck immediately. Felt as though she was holding a pair of soft hands, and she couldn't resist pressing it against her face. Fabric was so smooth and comforting. Duntithi was the first to emerge from the fitting room. She looked absolutely stunning. Having been friends for so many years, Tuncum had seen all of Thithi's different looks. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that she knew every detail of Thithi's appearance. But today, Thithi seemed different, as if she were no longer a mere mortal. The cheongsam hugged her curves but maintained an air of elegance. Under the light, the mesmerizing red color glowed softly, making every corner she entered seem brighter, as if she brought light with her wherever she went. Her alluring face and the sleeveless cheongsam, revealing her ivory arms, made anyone who saw her want to reach out and touch. Before Tuncum could compliment Thithi, Lam-Ki appeared in the camisole. The two of them together exuded the timeless charm of classic Chinese beauties. They had the allure of ancient women lounging on their beds, both coquettish and gentle, a beauty that was neither showy nor gaudy. Tuncum teased, "Where are these fairies planning to descend?" "Anywhere, as long as we can show off our outfits and make everyone stare," Duntithi eagerly replied, forgetting to even put on her shoes as she rushed out to show off. Lam-Ki admired herself in the mirror and murmured, "I never realized I was this beautiful." Luk-Anki, feeling slightly left out, said, "Tuncum, help me tie this scarf." The scarf added a lively glow to her face. Only Tuncum felt a bit disappointed because scarves are usually worn in cooler weather, and it was the middle of summer. Who wears a scarf in such heat? Sensing her unease, her 3 friends surrounded her, helping her put on the scarf. At that moment, she felt something different, a sudden reluctance to resist their playful teasing. But just then, she heard a faint meow in her ear and quickly raised her hand to stop them from wrapping the scarf around her neck. She urgently said, "Huck Bao is calling for me." With that, she rushed outside to search but found no sign of the cat. "Didn't you guys hear the cat?" "No, we didn't hear anything. You're probably going crazy missing Huck Bao." Fifi replied, "No, it came home last night." "It did? Why didn't you bring it with you?" Look Anki asked. "I didn't want to bring it in case it ran off again and I'd be exhausted trying to find it." While I was searching through trash cans looking for Huck Bao, I ran into an old acquaintance who mistook me for a trash collector. Isn't that just infuriating? Thinking about that so-called ghost-busting Taoist priest made Tuncum angry all over again. Her 3 friends were stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. Who could possibly mistake our Tuncum for a trash collector? You have to introduce us to this guy. Tuncum was still fuming. Introduce him. He's a con artist who lies, cheats, and pretends to exorcise ghosts. It's best to stay far away from him. Are you so angry because you have feelings for him? He must have been your secret admirer. Dunkiki teased. Secret admirer? I'd have to be blind to choose him. Thithi, do you know he's the one who gave me that awful nickname? Hearing this, Dunkiki rolled on the floor, laughing hysterically. She teased Tuncum. So he's your nemesis from a past life, and now he dares to call you a trash collector. It looks like you two are destined for each other. Tuncum kicked her and said, "Get up. It's already dark and you're still laughing at me. Let's go. It's time for you to shine." Look Anki, still giggling, grabbed her bag. As she walked past Lamki, she heard her whisper, "I don't know why, but I feel so cold." With so little clothing on, it's no wonder you're cold, Anki joked. The 4 of them headed towards the bar. They were all dolled up, like warriors preparing for battle. The atmosphere in the car was tense and full of determination. They swore to catch and kill any lecherous men. Tuncum felt a bit left out without the red fabric, feeling slightly resentful. Watching her 3 friends casually putting on makeup and complimenting each other, she grew more disheartened, feeling like she was just there to make them look better. But no matter how dissatisfied she was, there was nothing she could do, so she sat silently. As they stepped out of the car, Tuncum finally understood what it felt like to have hundreds, thousands of eyes on you. No wonder so many people wanted to become celebrities to be adored and admired. The feeling of being in the spotlight, of being the center of attention, was exhilarating. All eyes were on them. Even a graceful turn by Lamki captivated everyone. Fifi's sleeveless cheongsam drew gasps of admiration. In short, they were a huge success. They all had the same thought. To be so passionately admired made all the effort worthwhile. Their presence caused the women to stare without blinking. A few bolder ones even approached them, asking, "Where did you buy such beautiful outfits?" 4 of them smiled without answering. As they entered, the men parted to let them through, with some even eager to act as their bodyguards. The 4 women felt even more confident. Lamki sighed. "In the past, I was called the fashion queen, but I never had the chance to be as glamorous as I am now." The number of people admiring them grew. They became the treasures of the admired from every angle. It was as if the bar had opened just for them. There were even some men who, after carefully evaluating themselves, realized they weren't worthy of pursuing these women and wisely retreated. They didn't want to become the target of the other suitors. The men who persisted were either wealthy, sophisticated, or had some acquaintance with the women. 4 women were radiant. Only Lamki seemed oblivious to all this because she had already set her sights on her target, a prey she had long aimed for, the chairman of the city's largest diamond store. He had inherited his family's business, was young and handsome, wealthy and charming. Any beautiful woman would want to ensnare him. She had been eyeing him for a long time, but hadn't had the opportunity. A man like him was arrogant, and usually, no matter how beautiful Lamki was, he would only glance at her twice. She sat down gracefully, waiting for him, and as expected, prey approached. His fingers lightly brushed across her smooth back, his nails grazing her skin, causing a slight pain. In that instant, she felt an overwhelming thrill, like a match being struck, igniting a blazing fire. Their breathing became erratic. He wrapped an arm around her waist and held her tightly, whispering in his seductive voice, "Careful, or you might fall." His words were as cold as a knife, making Lamte shiver. He continued, "This place isn't right for you. It's too crowded. Let's find somewhere quieter." She willingly followed him, her heart brimming with happiness. In an instant, the Cinderella had turned into a princess. She was ecstatic that her dream had finally come true. She was so intoxicated by this happiness. She walked away gently, while the rest of the group, caught up in their excitement, didn't notice their friend's departure. The upper floor of Jimmy's bar was a 5-star hotel. The staff was very polite. Presidential suite was stunning, and Lamte and the young gentleman couldn't resist their burning desire any longer. They quickly found themselves entwined in each other, kissing passionately. They were both overcome with desire. When she tried to take off her camisole, the young man wouldn't let her, saying she was incredibly alluring in it. The two of them lost themselves in each other, reaching the peak of pleasure repeatedly, their excitement building to a crescendo. The room was filled with the sounds of their passion, with nothing but gasps and moans. After their wild encounter, he slid off Lamte, breathing heavily, and said, "I've never felt this good before. Being with you felt like being with two completely different women. You're amazing." Lamte smiled smugly. It seemed the young gentleman had fallen into her trap. She thought that being the editor-in-chief of an advertising company was meaningless. Her greatest ambition was to marry a rich man. And that wraps up the first part of our story. What did you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know how you felt about this episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update from Horror Podcast Realm. I'm committed to bringing you new videos regularly to satisfy all of you horror lovers out there. Thank you for listening and being part of this journey with me. I look forward to seeing you in the upcoming episodes, where even more chilling tales await. Have a fantastic day filled with good vibes. Until next time, take care and see you soon. Thanks for watching.